Okay, so firstly, in order to solve this problem, uh, just take note of the general Maclaurin series here, and this is given in the data booklet in section 5.19. So in 5.19 we can find that this is for the general idea of Maclaurin series in general. So for the family of functions f of n is equal to cosine to the power of nx. Find the Maclaurin series for fn x up to the term in x squared. So to do this, because we only need to go to x squared, you can see here that we only need to find f prime, f prime of 0, f double prime of 0, and of course f of 0. So let's put this to the side here. We need to find f of 0 plus f prime of 0 plus, and then x squared over 2 factorial f double prime of 0. Okay, so firstly, just find f of 0. You know that cosine of 0 is equal to 1, and obviously, since and because 1 to the n is equal to 1, where n belongs to a natural number or any number, we know that f of 0 is going to be equal to 1. So we can find our first term of 1. Now we need to find f prime. Now we need to, this is x. So now we need to find f prime of cosine n to the x. And here we can use the chain rule. So let's just rewrite this. So cosine n to the x. So first we're going to do two chain rules. And first we're going to do the power chain rule. So the first prime, it would be equal to n times cosine of n minus 1 x. And now we need to find derivative of this not just the inside function of here, so cosine x. And in order to find the and then we need to multiply by that, and we know that the derivative, and this is again from the data booklet, the derivative of cosine would be times negative sine x. Okay, so since the derivative of cosine would consequently be negative sine x, we can rewrite this as negative n times cosine n minus 1, and, just make it look a bit nicer, cosine n minus 1 x times sine of x. So this would be equal to that. And now, now we can find x times f prime of 0. However, because sine of 0 is equal to 0, then this whole expression will be equal to 0. So we can just write plus 0. And now we need the final term for x squared. So now we need to find the second derivative, and we can do that by finding the derivative of the first function. So let's quickly rewrite this as minus n times cosine n minus 1 x times sine x, and then find the derivative of that. So the first step is I'm just going to move out this minus n because it's just a constant value. So minus n. Then we could rewrite cosine n minus 1 x times sine x. And now we need to use the product rule. So the product rule is again for uv prime is equal to u prime v plus v prime u. So here that u is equal to cosine n minus 1 x, u prime is equal to the cosine of n minus, okay, let's make a bit more space, so the cosine of n minus 2 times, now reminder, don't forget about this n minus 1, so times n minus 1. And then finally, don't forget about the sine function. So times negative sine of x, and we could just rewrite this as minus n minus 2 cosine, this is x, cosine of n minus 2 of x sine x. And now we can go into the v. So v would be equal to sine x, and the derivative again sine x, it's very simple, and if you find it in the data book, the derivative of sine x is just cosine x. So now we can just apply the product rule. So u prime v would be minus n minus 2. Sorry, u prime v would be minus n minus 2. Oh, sorry, minus n minus 1. That's a mistake here. Let me just fix this. So it'd be minus n minus 1. N minus 1 times cosine n minus 2 x times sine x times sine, another sine x, so we can just rewrite this as sine squared x, plus, and now finally here we can write for v prime u, because cosine times cosine n minus 1, you can just write that it's equal to the cosine of n, because n minus 1 plus 1 is just n. So here now the cosine of x. And now don't forget about this minus n term that we took out earlier. So let's just quickly re-add this here. So minus n here. So now if you substitute 0 into here, this whole expression will be 0, because reminder that sine of 0 is equal to 0. And like we found earlier, cosine n of 0 is just going to be 1. So this would be equal to minus n. And now if you scroll up here, so now we know that f double prime is minus n. So here we can write x squared over 2 times minus n. So this would be minus n x squared over 2. So the final answer would be 1 minus n x squared.